Hello there. Thank you for your interest in becoming a backyard habitat volunteer. My name is JP Marchetti Mendez. I use he pronouns, and I am the program coordinator. I am a white Latino immigrant from Brazil, and I also speak Spanish and Portuguese, in case you feel more comfortable communicating with me in those languages. In this video, I will go over the wildlife stewardship portion of the certification criteria and what you should be looking for when visiting people's habitats. So here is an overview of the wildlife stewardship menu. Participants must have at least 1 item for silver, 2 items for gold, and 3 or more items for platinum. The items are wildlife water feature, to keep cats safe, bird and bat boxes, pollinator and beneficial insect nesting habitat, snags and nurse logs, to reduce outdoor lighting, to reduce bird and window collisions, and to have a native pollinator medal. As a certification volunteer, you will visit participants' habitats to celebrate and reward the hard work that they have done. We don't ever want to make them feel judged or ashamed for doing something wrong or for not doing something. During the visit, always give them tips for achieving higher certification levels by completing more items of the certification criteria. You will most likely also answer lots of questions from the participants. Those are some reasons for us to give you in-depth explanation of each wildlife stewardship item. I encourage you to write down your questions and comments throughout this presentation, then emailing them to me at the end. That kind of feedback will help me improve this presentation for future volunteer trainings. So let's get started. The first item in the menu for wildlife stewardship is wildlife water feature. So look for water sources like a pond or a maintained bird or bug bath, wildlife-friendly fountains, etc. Does a natural water source like a creek, for example, does that count? Yes, it does. The big picture here is to provide clean water for wildlife. All wildlife need a source of clean water, and many times it is not just for drinking, but also for bathing or even breeding, as in the case with amphibians. Often, birds that are not interested in feeder food may still visit yards where a good bird bath or other backyard water sources are available. Once the dry season starts, a pollinator drinking pond will provide respite for some busy bees, and that's the pun. And a water feature is quite easy to make. All you need is a flat bottom container. You fill it with water about 1 to 3 inches deep. Make sure to provide a escape route for small animals like insects that may fall into the water. So a branch dipped into the water or a rock that is above the water. All of those are great escape routes. Make sure that the water is pure water. I've heard cases of people adding either salt to the water to make it not freeze as quickly, or some people not rinsing the water feature well enough after cleaning and leaving it with soap. So just make sure that the water is clean, because some of those animals will be drinking from it. Another important thing is to disinfect it regularly, and to change that water, because again, we do want to make sure that the animals will be using drinking that water that is clean. A neglected water feature may cause and spread diseases, besides being breeding grounds for mosquitoes, and nobody wants that. So no green water, no cloudy water, and if the water is full of debris from either a tree or for sitting next to a bird feeder or anything like that, that water needs to be maintained more regularly, and the water needs to be clean all the time. All right, so the second item in the wildlife stewardship menu is related to preventing cats from roaming free through the neighborhood. The first thing you need to do, or to find out from the participant, is if they have cats, right? So if they don't, great. You can just move on to the next menu item on the list that you'll be working on. But if they say they do have cats, then you have to find out, how do these people keep the cat? Do they let the cat roam outside, or do they keep the cat inside all the time? Do they have a catio? So this is a touchy menu item. Remember that you are not trying to force your opinion or pass judgment on participants. On the other hand, your role as a volunteer is to educate people and help them to create a safe wildlife habitat. Cats are the number one cause of wildlife death. Billions of birds, insects, small mammals, and amphibians are killed by free-roaming cats every year. This is a sensitive topic, and we must approach it in a cat-positive way. Portland Audubon, the Federal Cat Coalition of Oregon, and other partners created the Cat Safe at Home campaign to educate people on the benefits of keeping their cats enclosed. And I'm using the word enclosed here to denote cats that do not get outside, and cats that have access to outdoors of an outdoor enclosure, such as a catio. We'll speak more about catios in a little bit. From my own cat owner's perspective, free-roaming cats are much more likely to get injured by other cats when they get into territorial fights or when they transmit diseases to each other. They can also get hurt by humans. Some humans will shoot cats. Not every human is a cat-loving people like I am. There's also the danger of being run over by cars. Some people will also poison cats that they get in their yard, so they're not a cat-loving person, and the neighbor's cat come into the yard. So some people will try to harm the pet so they don't keep getting the visitor, right? And also cats can get hurt by other wildlife, such as coyotes, large raptors, and depending where you live in the city, even cougars and bobcats. These wildlife will prey on cat. So the bottom line is that enclosed cats live safer, longer, and happier lives, while wildlife is protected in the process. So for Platinum, that is the only level of the certification that that require people to keep cats either strictly indoors or indoors and in catios. For gold and for silver, cats can still roam free outside. It's not a requirement. So for Platinum, they need to be inside or in catios. So catios are a great compromise, right? The cats can still get outside, get fresh air, get sunlight, but they're still safe and contained. They are not hunting birds or bird nests or anything like that, unless the birds go inside the catio, and that is a different conversation. But yeah, catios are great compromise. And the Cat Safe at Home website has great resources on catios, on how to train your cat, or how to adapt, or how to acclimate your cat from being a free roaming cat to being an indoor cat. So again, Cat Safe at Home is a website. I recommend you checking it out. Some statistics here from the Wildlife Care Center, Portland Audubon's Wildlife Care Center. They treat about 1,000 animals injured by cats every year. And that number does not include the number of animals that gets killed. It is only the numbers that get treated. From a steward perspective, we must protect wildlife and in turn the ecosystem from the amazing predators that cats are. Wildlife provides regulating services such as pollinating plants, scavenging carcasses, controlling populations of pests, dispersing seeds. They also provide a supporting services such as nutrient cycling, soil formation and aeration, ecosystem engineering, and also cultural services like arts, birding, tourism, and so much more. Outdoor domestic cats have contributed to the extinction of 63 species of birds, mammals, and reptiles in the wild. Cats continue to adversely impact a wide variety of species. Cats are one of the world's most destructive introduced species. They were first domesticated by the Egyptians around 4,000 years ago to control rodents. And as a reminder, these are just facts and not cat bashing. We love cats and we know how what amazing hunters they are. So this is just to explain that because they're so good at hunting, they will hunt for fun and hunt for food and just survive in case of feral cats because they are so good, but they, as a consequence, negatively impact wildlife, where the wildlife is usually not evolved to be protected from those amazing predators. So that is why we encourage people to build catios. A catio is an outside enclosure attached or detached from the house where cats can experience the outdoors safely. Portland has a catio tour every year in late summer. The event is organized by the Cat Safe at Home campaign, and volunteers help make it happen. It is a self-guided tour of properties that agree to show their gardens to people interested in seeing what catios look like in person, asking questions, finding out more resources of who can build or how to build. Our program participants are often part of that catio tour, and they open their yards for people to visit and ask questions. You can find more information at www.catsafeathome.org. The good news is that a catio does not need to be fancy or expensive. It can be built with inexpensive and free materials that you can recycle. On the left, the picture on the left, you can see a simple and large catio with a bridge connecting a window from the house to the enclosure. So this cat has free access to the catio from the house and vice versa. On the right, you can see a picture of a small box catio that also has a bridge. So this cat also has the autonomy to move from one place to another. But a catio can also just be an enclosure without access to the house. So at certain times of the day, you will probably pick up the cat, put in the catio, and then remember to later retrieve the cat, hopefully. Anyways, catios are great. The third item in the wildlife stewardship menu is bird and bat boxes. They have to be appropriate for our native species here in this region. So those cute or decorative bird houses, they do not count. I've seen like teacup shaped ones and ones with wind chimes attached to them. Those, they don't count. These boxes are important nesting and roosting places in our urban landscapes. By installing bird and bat boxes, we're trying to compensate for the lost habitat that once existed in this area. These boxes must be installed at the correct height. They should have the correct size and shape for the targeted species. They must have the right sun exposure, etc. Also, the bird's nest must be cleaned every year. So having a bird nest there in the spring, you would let that go for like during the summer, and then in the fall you would clean out the nest from previous year, because most species of birds don't reuse nests year after year. They may reuse the nest in the same season, so maybe they will have 2 clutches of babies, but not necessarily they wouldn't come back next spring to use the same nest again. They would just rebuild it. These boxes need to be installed in places where they would not be disturbed while occupied. They should also be safe from cats that roam the neighborhood and other wildlife that may just predate on the easy food that would be on a nest box installed in an unsafe place. Bird and bat boxes are a great way to watch the natural behavior of birds. In 2020, some black-capped chickadees chose my nest box to raise 4 babies, and that was one of the highlights of my year last year. So I highly encourage you to just see how busy the parents get, how many times they go back and forth feeding the young with insects in their beak, like multiple times a minute sometimes. I was impressed on how quickly they found food sometimes. And it's just really rewarding to just hear the babies inside and then watching them fledge and leave the nest. And yeah, it was great. And kids usually would appreciate participating in that experience as well. Lastly, the bird boxes, or the boxes, bat and bird boxes, can be bought or homemade as long as they meet the requirements highlighted in the first bullet point there. The Nest Watch website has great plans for homemade bird houses. So they have sizes and where to put the hole, the diameter of the hole, everything. So it's Nest Watch. That's the website you're looking for. Number 4 on the wildlife stewardship menu is pollinator and beneficial insect nesting habitat. So when you are at someone's habitat, ask if they have any native bee houses. Those would be either mason bee tubes or bumblebee nest boxes. Honeybees would not count for this purpose, although they are great pollinators. Also, natural occurring nesting does not count as insect habitat. It has to be something that humans added to the yard or to the habitat, not something that just happened to be there. When you're walking about the property, look for wood debris piles and strike a conversation about it. Some people may not know that they have that the yard junk is actually an excellent insect habitat, and it will just look like a bramble or like a pile of branches and twigs all in a large pile. So for that pile to count, for the wood debris pile to count, it has to be of a decent size, or in other words, it cannot just be like a few twigs just on top of each other. It also cannot be a firewood stash, because that would be too oftenly disturbed, or too often disturbed, or used up on a regular basis. So pretty much the wood would be moving, so that the insects will not have a chance to just use that as a habitat. An insect nesting habitat is a pile of yard debris that is left in place, often year after year. It just stays there. So in the pictures there, you can see the mason bee tubes on the left, and then the pile of wood debris on the right, and that is of a considerable size. So insects are essential for the ecosystem, and they are in steep decline, unfortunately. Without insects, we would not have as many plants, and definitely not as many fruits and vegetables. The food web would collapse, and thousands of species would go extinct without insects. We need to support them in the world, but also in our habitats whenever possible. Different insect species have different nesting requirements. Some are ground nesting, such as the bumblebees and the cicadas, while others are cavity and wood dwellers, like wasps and beetles. In our habitats, we can provide insect nesting areas by having mason bee houses or bumblebee boxes, having branch piles or the wood piles, and even just some areas of exposed dirt that where insects can burrow. Also, mason bees use those exposed areas to collect mud to create their nests. So even exposed dirt is insect habitat. Regarding bees, there are many native species in our region. Bumblebees, mason bees, and leaf-cutting bees are the most popular in our outdoor spaces. Mason bees are cavity nesters, and their nesting tubes look like drilled blocks or bundles of tubes. The bees use the tunnels to rear the next generation, and they only live one season per year. So the adult bees do not hibernate and survive the winter. So all the bees from this year will die, and before they die, they create the next generation that will emerge in the spring of next year. And I'm talking about mason bees, not all kinds of bees. There are lots to know about mason bees, and I could spend 40 or more minutes talking about them. I could have a whole seminar about them. They're great. I have kept them for a few years, and I love how gentle they are. Although they can sting, they rarely do, so you can even touch them and everything. They're not aggressive because they don't have a hive to defend. They don't have a queen. They are solitary bees. So they're just great. Another good wildlife to have kids observe and learn from, because of that gentleness and they're just busy. The bees are just busy and they don't care that you're there just watching them. So I encourage everybody to learn about them. Bumblebees are ground nesters, but you can trick them into using nest boxes. So the success rate is not great. It's about 25%. So 1 in 4 boxes that you put out may not be used, or maybe it will take about 4 years for them to discover the box. And the box is what it looks like there on the center bottom picture. It needs a tunnel for them to get in, and then inside you can put some hamster nesting. Seems like the smell of the bedding from the hamster cage is attractive, because bumblebees usually find in the wild, they find rodents nests to create their own nests, so they reuse their nests. So that may be an attractant, something you can try if you have hamsters available. But yeah, those boxes can be made and put in your yard, and hopefully they'll find it and use it. The Xerces Society, they have a document called Nest for Native Bees that is very informative, and it gives instructions on how to create those boxes, the dimensions, and everything. So Google the document Nests for Native Bees from the Xerces Society and you'll find instructions. The 5th item on the wildlife stewardship menu are snags and nurse logs. These should be easy to spot during the walkthrough when you are visiting someone's habitat. A snag is a dead standing tree, while a nurse log is a dead tree or a large section of a dead tree on the ground. So let the dead tree stay, of course, when and where it is appropriate and safe in the backyard, right? Dead trees, either standing or felled, have many benefits. They are a place to nest or roost. Many animals, including birds, bats, squirrels, and raccoons, they use the hollow cavities and crevices in the standing deadwood. They're also a food source. So by attracting insect, mosses, lichens, and fungi, the deadwood become a gourmet restaurant for wildlife, and sometimes humans too, because we often collect mushrooms, gourmet mushrooms that grow on deadwood. They are also crown nests, so crow's nests. So higher branches of snags serve as an excellent lookout for which wildlife, such as raptor, just stay there and look for at a distance, looking for potential prey. So especially tall snags are excellent for raptors to just sit and watch. They're food cache. So many birds and mammals use the cavities and holes to store their food, sometimes even over winter. So they keep coming back to that snag or that nurse log to find the nut that they stored in the summer or something when there's nothing else to eat in the winter. And I've seen the scrub jays do that, and of course squirrels all the time. They're also hiding places. Many animals use the snags and logs as a place where they can use the peeling bark, all the holes or the cracks and the cavities, all for to hide either during the day when it's too hot, they need a shady place to be safe, or when there are predators around, or even at night. So great for that. They're also soil refreshers. As dead trees decay, they return vital nutrients to the soil through the nitrogen cycle. So the decaying logs on the forest floor also acts as nurse logs for new seedlings. Especially the red huckleberry is notorious for always growing on dead on nurse logs. So the seedling grows on top of that decaying wood and get the nutrients from the dead tree into for its own growth. So, and that happens with many plant species. So keep in mind that a long branch is not a nurse log, or twigs on the ground, not the same thing, right? So to be considered a snag or a nurse log, the wood must be of a considerable diameter of about 2 feet or more. So it needs to be a large piece of wood. Number 6 on the wildlife stewardship menu is to reduce outdoor lighting. When talking to program participants and walking around, pay attention to their light fixtures. Are they pointing down? Are they on motion sensors? Strike a conversation and ask about their light, and ask if they turn them off during the night, especially during migration season. Oregon has one of the most pristine night skies. It also has millions of birds flying through every night during spring and fall migrations. 70% of North America's birds are migratory, and over 80% of those birds migrate at night. Light affects all living beings, from insects to humans, from sleeping to breathing patterns. It disrupts our circadian rhythm and confuses wildlife. We don't need to turn night into day. Lights can be just bright enough to see. They should be sheltered to not illuminate unnecessary areas or your neighbor's bedroom window or anything like that. They should be pointing down, and preferably warm white instead of cool white. So when you're purchasing lights, you're probably familiar with the different light colors, the bulb colors. Give preference to warm white. And that's because cool white is blue rich light. So it has, in the wavelengths of light, there's too much blue. And we've seen a few problems with excess of too much blue light. For example, that wavelength scatters more readily than longer wavelengths like reds and yellows. The blue light increases the light pollution and sky glow. It also increases the recovery time for dilated pupil. So when your eyes adapt to darkness, and if you shine a blue light on a pupil, it will stay smaller, so you won't see as good at night after seeing a blue light than if you would a red or yellow light. Blue light also suppresses melatonin secretion in vertebrates, so it affects our melatonin production. It may also increase the risk of cancer, diabetes, obesity, and that is a study from 2016 from the AMA. So the motion sensors are the best option for preserving the night sky in darkness. They not only protect the darkness, so they keep they protect the darkness, but also they save money and electricity, right? Because they are only turning on when needed. During migration seasons, which happen in spring and fall every year, preserving the night sky is even more important. Many species of birds rely on the stars to navigate. Also, many birds get disoriented when the city is too bright, or there are too much concentration of light. That sky glow may attract birds that may not intend to go in that direction. So sky glow would also interfere with the star navigation, because birds will not be able to see the stars as well. So Portland Audubon has a Lights Out campaign that encourages people to turn their lights off during migration seasons. There's a pledge that you can take on Audubon's website. So if you Google Lights Out Portland, you will find the Audubon website where you can take the pledge, and then I think twice a year you can you take the pledge that twice a year you're going to turn off your lights at night and help the birds that are migrating. But of course, that pledge asks for only for 2 days, but if you can do it often, even better, right? Because birds will be migrating for many days, not only 2 days a year. And the last point I'll make is that many people defend bright lights by inserting crime into the conversation, right? People think that dark areas are scary and are going to be inviting crime. You'll start seeing more incidents of crime in darker areas, and studies show that that is not true. Actually, bright areas and dark areas have similar rates of crime. So adding more light may add a sense of security, but it may not reduce crime. Number 7 on the wildlife stewardship menu deals with the reducing bird collisions on windows. In the picture there, you can see the print of a bird who that hit a window, and the dust from the feathers left that print. And that you can also, if you ever had a window collision in your house, you can often see the print of what part of the bird hit that window. So during site visits, strike a conversation about any incidents of bird hitting windows in the property. Has it ever happened, right? Some people never had that happen, so hopefully never happened. But if it has, is that something that happens often? Can the participant point out a problematic window or area that birds keep hitting? So take a look on their windows during the walkthrough to identify some windows that may already have some treatment. And treatment, I'm going to go over the treatment soon, but do you see things that indicate that the participant is trying to do something about bird window collisions? So birds may strike windows at different speeds, so the damage may vary from just the bird getting disoriented, kind of like seeing stars for a little bit, all the way to they just broke their neck and died. So it varies. Birds hitting birds hit windows because they do not recognize the glass as a barrier. Also, depending on the light conditions, they may see a reflection of the habitat, so they just think it is a continuation of their environment to just keep flying. So to help mitigate the problem, people can install visual markers on the outside of the window that may help. Another good strategy is to move any bird feeders close to the window, about 3 feet or so, and that prevents the bird from having too much momentum if they were to fly into the wrong direction. If they fly towards the window, they're close enough to not hit at a high speed and die. So that helps. And so for people who find an injured bird near a window, they should put them in a box or somewhere to keep it safe. And they should not move or peek on that box for at least 15 minutes. After that time, they can open the box outside slowly. If the bird is alive and well, it will just fly away. If the bird is still acting funny, you can give Portland Audubon's Wildlife Care Center a call and ask them what to do next. They either will tell you to keep waiting and maybe the bird will recover, or depending on the description of how the bird is acting, they will just ask you to take the bird there, see if they can save, and if they cannot, then they will humanely euthanize the bird so it stops suffering. So here are some of the treatments that I mentioned early, the window treatments that I mentioned. There are many creative ways of making windows safer for birds. Stickers on the outside, insect screens, strings, even washable paint. They're all great alternatives, and you can see pictures of those treatments that I mentioned. So the top left, the two top left are stickers of bird silhouettes, and apparently that helps birds be aware of not necessarily of the window, but they see the bird silhouette, and that calls attention to them. So those are the top two, and then under the bottom left is a window screen or an insect screen, and then next to it there is some strings that you can hang in front of the window, so birds it prevents birds from thinking that they can go through those strings. And then next to that there are some washable paint examples, and then the top or the right side two pictures, the top and middle part pictures, are of the professional commercial window treatments, and those are usually they are treated with UV. They are UV reactive, and birds have they see UV light better than humans can. So for us, it's almost transparent. You can still see them, don't get me wrong, but they're almost transparent to us, while to birds they see it as they see it brighter, so they know that something is there. When choosing a window treatment, a good rule of thumb is to keep a 2 inches high or 4 inches wide rule for spacing the symmetrical marking. So for example, if you're going to dangle the strings in front of your window, make them about 4 inches wide apart, so birds don't think that they can fly through that. And if you're going to do horizontal lines, do them every 2 inches. All right, number 8 and last one on the wildlife stewardship menu is the native pollinator meadow. So a meadow is an open, sunny area planted with grass or herbs or other non-woody plants. There can be some trees or shrubs as long as as long as maintains an open character to the area, that is considered a meadow. When doing the site visit, a pollinator meadow will look like an area where lawn used to be. Usually people will take out the lawn and then plant with make a meadow, especially if it is in a sunny area. Otherwise they would just have to do shrubs and other plants. The purpose of a native meadow is to provide flowers for the pollinators. Meadows are easily created by spreading native seeds in the fall. Those seeds can be collected if you go on hikes during the summer or spring or summer. You can collect those seeds, or an easier alternative is to just purchase seed packs from companies. In our website, we provide a few sources for native seeds that people can order from. When choosing seeds or what plants to plant the seeds for, select native species with different bloom times, so the pollinators will have food throughout the different seasons. Adding different species also provide pollinators with constant bloom. So one species will bloom in early spring, the next one will be in middle spring, another species will bloom in late spring, and that way there's always food throughout the season. So different bloom times and constant blooming is better. And also species with long blooms, right? Some species will start blooming in early spring and then keep blooming all the way to midsummer. Those are great as well. Another species selection tip is that studies suggest that most pollinators prefer to visit yellow and white flowers. So yarrow with the white flowers are great. California poppy with the yellow flowers are great. Or they're orange flowers, but give preference to yellow and white. Flowers are not the only beneficial part of a meadow. Some plants with hollow stems are also provide nesting habitat, like in the case of mason bees and leaf-cutting bees. So the flowers will grow, the plant will start the plant will start decaying or dying. Those stems will break and then reveal the hollow stems inside. And if the meadow is left over winter that way, the next season the insects will be able to use those hollow stems. If it is a manicured meadow, meaning like come fall or winter that is going to be cleaned out, that will defeat the purpose, right? All those great nesting habitats will be removed. But if they're left there, great pollinator habitat. Meadows do not have to be big, and even a sunny parking strip or a side yard can be transformed into a meadow, as long as it is sunny, right? One of the main characteristics of a meadow is the sun part of it. For more information about creating meadows, the West Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District has a great free handbook that you can find online and download. I think it is a PDF document. It's many pages long, so it's a booklet. Great resource. And also the Xerces Society has great handouts on this topic as well. And again, the Xerces Society, they are experts in pollinators, so they definitely know what they're talking about. And as I mentioned in the beginning, please email me your questions and comments so I can get you the answers that you still are unclear about. But also it will give me a chance to improve this presentation. I want to thank you again for being part of this training and for helping the program keep up with all the growing number of people creating habitats. I think we're over 7,500 participants now, so we are a team of only 4, and without volunteer support we would not be able to do this. So thank you again very, very much. I look forward to working with you soon should you become a certification volunteer. So take care for now, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.